Coming up, the latest from NBA in Vegas. Check out the big new Honda jets.
Plus, see Captain Kirk head to space for real. And flying off the farm in a Bearhawk. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haines and Alyssa Cobb.
Well, what happens in Vegas gets broadcast to the aviation world. This week is the annual National Business Aviation Association's Business Aviation Convention and Exhibition in Las Vegas. And Tom is there in Las Vegas, too.
Hey, Alyssa, welcome to what used to be called Sin City. Today, Las Vegas is much more about family entertainment and business, of course, the business of conventions. And NBAA is one of the bigger ones to hit this city every other year. Perhaps the biggest news from the NBA convention comes from HondaJet. The company rolled out a new concept jet, the Model 2600, a mid-sized business jet with the economics of a light jet. It could carry up to 11 people and has a high-speed cruise of 450 knots. Maximum altitude, 47,000 feet. That's higher than most business jets. And a range of over 2,600 nautical miles, making it the only transcontinental single-pilot jet. Honda says this would be a very efficient aircraft.
Building something larger is not just what we wanted to do. We wanted to build something that's more comfortable. When you look at the cabin, something that leverages all the technology and innovation that Honda and Honda Aircraft is known for. And then when we look at aviation and business aviation going forward, some of the statistics on CO2 emissions being 20% more efficient than light jets and 40% more efficient than mid-sized jets, which is kind of a category that the range and seating capacity of this aircraft pushes into. That's a huge focus for us. We want to be a steward of the environment and not look 5 or 10 years forward, but really 20 to 50 years forward. How can we as an organization push the envelope?
The father of the Honda jet reiterated the company's concern for the environment.
Honda is also committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions as a responsible leader.
And while the Honda Jet 2600 was presented as a concept, Fujino told me the project has already undergone a lot of engineering. And since it would share a lot of components from the original Honda Jet, it could move quickly into a flying prototype if the company decides to move forward. So Alyssa, the big reveal here at the show really surprised people. A lot of people didn't know this was coming. Fujino told me back in 2016, when I first flew the HA420, that a family of airplanes was planned, but he didn't really say when. And so everybody thought there was one coming at some point, but just didn't know when. So it kind of surprised everybody here at the show with the big reveal. It looks like a fascinating airplane. It'll be fun to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and another big mock-up at the show at the static display at Henderson Airport. Cessna showing off the Denali single-engine turboprop cabin. That aircraft will be powered by the brand new GE Catalyst engine. And there was a lot of buzz about that engine at the show. The GE Catalyst engine made its first flight on a testbed aircraft a few weeks ago. The 1-hour, 40-minute flight took off from and landed at Berlin Airport. There's a 3D printed mock-up of the high-tech engine on display in the GE booth. And that's fitting because a lot of the engine will be made with 3D printing. GE Aviation's Cole Massey says they're excited about the progress of the program.
The engine performed exactly as we had expected, and right now they're checking out all the data, making sure everything goes all right, and that'll be the first step in a long test flight campaign here over the next few months.
Catalyst features a FADEC system and engine monitoring that automatically uploads data to the cloud for you when you land. That will allow detailed metrics about the engine health to be tracked and any potential issues spotted early.
A lot of the NBA show is directed to the folks who pay the bills and usually sit in the back of the airplane, so no surprise that a lot of the manufacturers are showing off new interiors. Cessna added to its Gen 2 stable. Now the M2 Gen 2 and the XLS Gen 2 get the premium insides and other upgrades. The entry-level M2 gets premium-level interior styling, accent lighting, get this, illuminated cup holders and wireless charging stations and USB ports at each seat. The XLS Gen 2 now has a lighted stairway, and to celebrate Textron's sponsorship of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard, the company unveiled a special edition U.S. ski and snowboard interior and exterior design available for new Cessna and Beechcraft products. A portion of the proceeds from every one of those aircraft will go directly to the organization. Meanwhile, Dassault Aviation had a full-scale cabin mock-up of the new Falcon 10X ultra long-range business jet. The company compared the large cabin to a flying penthouse. Bombardier virtually launched the Challenger 3500 last month. They showed off a mock-up of the cabin at NBAA. The claim to fame on the inside are the patented new age seats that adjust to zero gravity positions. So Alyssa, you can be super comfortable when you're in your Challenger 3500, or perhaps you'd prefer the penthouse approach of the Falcon 10X. A lot of cool airplanes here.
That's right, it'd just be a small jump up from the Cessna 170.
That's true.
Well, Vegas is certainly known for its heyday with the Rat Pack, but business aircraft have a glorious past as well. Some of the retro flyers are gathered on the ramp at Henderson Airport. John and Martha King's vintage Falcon 10, for example, sits right next to a beautifully restored Beech 18. But the crown jewel of the vintage fleet? DC-3 Miss Virginia. She steals the show. AOPA was instrumental in helping to organize the vintage business aircraft display, and it's hoped to become a regular feature of NBAA. And the future for business aircraft looks great. A long-standing tradition of the NBAA convention is the presentation of the Honeywell forecast. They survey a large number of business jet operators to find out what aircraft they might buy in the future and how they think they'll use their aircraft. And despite the devastating COVID-19 effects on the large air transportation industry, business aviation is already having a strong rebound. Business flight hours for 2021 are expected to surpass 2019 total hours. That's before the pandemic.
We are expecting 100 additional aircraft worth over $3 additional billion from last year. Right. Now you have to keep in mind that a lot of them are the larger cabin, ultra long range. So even though they're few, they're worth a lot more. There is that, and taking into account the exit of one of the supersonic business jets is not a bad growth.
Honeywell predicts a 3% annual average growth in deliveries through the decade. And just like the market for used piston aircraft, Honeywell says it's going to be a hot market for used biz jets as well.
Now, while the NBAA convention tends to emphasize the heavy iron, there's still plenty here for the single engine and light twin folks. For example, you can find piston singles from Cirrus and Piper at the static display, even a Husky out there. But a big reason why we cover this event is because so much of what is unveiled here eventually makes its way into the aircraft that many of us fly, like the new Honeywell Anthem flight deck, for example. Touchscreen displays with impressive 3D graphics, they present a wealth of information.
Primarily, we wanted to transform the experience. We wanted a cockpit that was simple, powerful, and easy to fly, fun to fly. To achieve that, we needed to focus on connected. So instead of the connectivity we're all used to, where you have to walk up to the airplane with the iPad and connect it, instead we're doing that with always-on cloud connected. That means we can do things off-board the airplane, or the airplane can send data to the cloud and we can access that from anywhere.
The secure browser means you can now get updated information in the air from your favorite weather websites. The system is scalable, so many of the features will be available in lighter aircraft. So it's an impressive system, and we'll have more on that. There's so much to talk about. We'll have more of that on a future show.
All right, looking forward to it. Well, of course, it wouldn't be a major aviation convention without hearing from the FAA administrator. Stephen Dixon promised a new, more collaborative FAA. He said that the regulations should be viewed as a protective envelope that should allow the industry to innovate quickly and safely.
So the question is, how do we equitably integrate all this exciting new innovation into our national airspace system and do it in a safe and predictable way? How do we do it without being, the traditional, FAA wet blanket? Well, you can't do that. How do we start from yes? And how do we use innovation itself to improve the margin of aviation safety? Of course, and a lot of people over the years would say that the FAA is actually the drag that's pulling that innovation back. Well, I'm here to tell you that might have been true for your father's FAA, but we are challenging that paradigm.
Andy promised that Mosaic, now that's a rework of the regs that will allow faster and bigger LSAs, among other things, will hit the docket in September of 2023.
But it isn't all blue skies and fair winds this year in Las Vegas. A frontal system moved through the west on Monday, and it brought with it some really strong winds. Forecast was 25 to 35, gusts to 60. Not sure we quite got there, but it was close. And it was enough to shut down the static display at Henderson Airport for the entire day. Monday is usually press day out at the Static with large events and big reveals. No major damage reported from the storm, and everybody got their press conferences in one way or another. So Alyssa, you just never know what's going to happen out here. It was really dusty, blowing around a lot on Monday, and still pretty windy even on Tuesday.
Oh, I can only imagine. Well, coming up after the break, a new electric airplane from Diamond.
And fly along in a beautiful Bearhawk 4-place.
The future of USB charging power has arrived. Introducing new ultra-fast charging TA360 USB chargers. Unlock the power of USB Power Delivery PD technology. Max power. Multiple configurations. In-seat, cabin, cockpit, and galley USB power. Easy to install. Backed by the best. True Blue Power, the USB experts.
Welcome back. The tragic crash of a Cessna 340 near Santee, California has generated a lot of interest. The AOPA Air Safety Institute released a video today that gives us an early look at the factors surrounding this crash.
Let's review the tragic accident of a Cessna 340 in the San Diego, California area earlier this week. The pilot was killed, a person was killed on the ground, and 2 people were seriously injured. This accident's gotten a lot of attention, so we thought we'd help you understand what's known about the accident at this stage and where the investigators are likely to look. Just a quick summary of the accident itself. A Cessna 340 flown by a single pilot from Yuma, Arizona to Montgomery Field, San Diego. During the descent phase of the flight, the pilot is cleared for runway 28 right approach into Montgomery Field, circle to land runway 23. During that approach, he's vectored off because he never intercepts the localizer. And in that vector back around for a second attempt, the pilot loses control and crashes into a nearby neighborhood.
Air 22 Golf, turn left heading 210, descend and maintain 3,800.
3,800, 210, 2 Golf.
Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 250, join final.
250, join final for 2 Golf. And 2 Golf, did you say clear for the ILS to it, right?
Air 22 Golf, you're 4 miles from Penny, descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer. Clear to ILS, runway 28 right, circle to land, runway 23.
Clear for the ILS to it, right? For runway 23, 2 Golf.
Yes, sir. Descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer.
2,800 till established on the localizer, 2 Golf.
Air 22 Golf, traffic 2 o'clock, 3 miles southbound, 5,000 descending, 4,000 to C-130. They are restricted above you. Caution, right turbulence.
Copy, 2 Golf.
Air 22 Golf, looks like you're drifting right of course. Are you correcting?
Correcting for 2 Golf. Is 2 Golf clear for runway 23?
22 Golf, you're not even tracking a localizer. I need you to fly. Actually, cancel approach clearance, climb and maintain 3,000. 22 Golf.
3,000, 2 Golf.
Maintain 3,000. Low altitude alert, minimum vector and altitude in your area, 2,800.
Climbing 2 Golf.
Air 22 Golf, climb and maintain 3,800.
3,800.
Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 090, re-vectors to final.
090, 2 Golf.
Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 090, climb immediately, maintain 4,000.
1,000, climbing immediately, 2 Golf.
Okay, it looks like you're descending, sir. I need to make sure you are climbing, not descending.
Golf is climbing.
Air 22 Golf, say altitude.
2,500 to the Golf.
Center 22 Golf, low altitude alert. Climb immediately. Climb the airplane, maintain 5,000. Expedite climb. Climb the airplane, please. Center 22 Golf, just level out the plane or the heading and climb the airplane up to 5,000 when you can, sir. 10 o'clock and a half mile, 1,500. You appear to be descending again, sir. Are you, say altitude? Princess 7022 Golf, SoCal approach.
So let's take a look at the factors that the investigators will look at as they try to determine the cause of this accident.
You can find the full-length video on the Air Safety Institute website. The NTSB investigation could take up to 2 years. The FAA has a new proposed airworthiness directive that would affect over 6,000 Continental engines, those equipped with F&M or Stratus oil filter adapters. The NTSB urged the FAA to implement the AD, citing 11 accidents since 2004 caused by oil leaks. The AD would require a fiber gasket to be replaced with a copper gasket. The FAA says the fix would cost around $250. You can comment on the proposal on the Federal Register website.
Diamond Aircraft just announced a new all-electric trainer. The DA-40 is based on the conventional DA-40. The power system will recharge the airplane in less than 20 minutes, and the batteries will be installed in a belly pod. Diamond says the DA-40 will have 40% lower operating costs than a piston engine airplane. Total flight time is expected to be up to 90 minutes, and initial flights are planned for next year with certification in 2023. And Bell has a cool new aircraft. It's called the APT, or Autonomous Pod Transport. It's an electric aircraft, and it's basically a big quadcopter designed for troop resupply missions and other important deliveries. It takes off vertically and then transitions to wing-borne flight, cruising at 60 knots. It can carry up to 100 pounds of supplies, and the goal is to make deliveries faster than traditional aircraft can.
Well, after pretending to be in space for years, Captain Kirk, a.k.a. William Shatner, finally got to experience for real this week. Shatner blasted off to the edge of space on Wednesday aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard launch vehicle. At 90 years old, Shatner became the oldest person to travel to space.
Everybody in the world needs to do this. Everybody in the world needs to see oh my God. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Blue Origin hopes Shatner's reaction will encourage more people to pay for a trip to space.
Well, there are two programs here at AOPA that are making a real difference for the future of general aviation. You Can Fly is getting more people in the air. There's the Rusty Pilots program helping folks get back to what they've always loved doing. And we're helping people find and form flying clubs to make flying more affordable. Plus, our aviation STEM curriculum that's in hundreds of the nation's high schools is giving kids practical information about the opportunities for them in aviation. And the other thing that we're really proud of is the AOPA Air Safety Institute, which has been working to make GA safer since 1950. But all of that takes money. The money comes from the AOPA Foundation, and it gets funds solely from voluntary donations from pilots who really care about general aviation. And now a donor has contributed $1 million to encourage other AOPA members to join the Legacy Society and include a future gift to the AOPA Foundation in their estate plans. For more, let's go out to Elizabeth Tennyson and Mark Baker.
Thanks, guys. Mark, we're out here in the beautiful Legacy Court at AOPA headquarters. This is kind of a special place. Can you speak to that?
I sure can. You know, a number of years ago, some donors came together and said, you know, we want to invest in the future of aviation and what it means to be part of Legacy Court, have your name permanently on this wall, but to recognize the spirit of giving back to general aviation, to AOPA, and making sure that we can share that fund. So this place was built a number of years ago. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. You know, National Estate Awareness Planning Week is coming up, October 18th through the 24th, and it was really created to give people an awareness of the need to plan for your estate and just how important that is. What's AOPA doing around that?
Well, we're certainly celebrating the idea, the whole idea that pilots are generally pretty good planners because they have to think ahead. And thinking ahead in this case means supporting programs like you run and the You Can Fly, the Safety Institute, and putting your money to work after you're done with using it. on this planet to support these programs that will perpetuate aviation for a long time to come. And getting that plan done, become part of this wall so that your memory stays alive, and general aviation is what this is all about. So let's take this week to celebrate the idea you can make a difference later on.
And by simply becoming a Legacy Society member and pledging a piece of your estate to the AOPA Foundation gets money now. That's because the donor will immediately release some of the $1 million to match 10% of your planned gift. And AOPA has teamed up with Free Will, a service that will help you create a will valid in 50 states. If you choose to leave a gift, Free Will create the necessary language to support the AOPA Foundation. And Free Will is, as the name suggests, free. More information is available on our website.
Well, if you see dust clouds north of Reno this week, no worries. It's just the start of the High Sierra Fly-In. The backcountry event takes place on the Dead Cow Lake bed in the High Sierra, Nevada. It's about as remote as you can get, and those who come wouldn't have it any other way. It's home of the Stoll Drag World Championships. If you're attending, look for AOPA folks to be out there. We'd love for you to join them in coffee each morning. AOPA's social media will be on site. Follow them for a real-time look at the event. We'll have more from the playa next week.
And owning a backcountry airplane is a lot of fun no matter where you fly it. Bill Anton owns a Bearhawk 4-place that he scratch-built to fly off his farm in Kansas. AOPA content producer David Tulish shares this story.
In the farmlands of West Kansas, Bill Anton maneuvers his home-built Bearhawk 4-place in for a landing at his family's Flying UV Ranch in Setanta. His grandfather was a cattle rancher, and Anton has been working the land since he was 15 years old. It took him 10 years to build the aircraft, including 7 fashioning a scratch-built wing.
Before I decided what to build, I'd set down a list of criteria. I wanted something that was big enough to really haul people and things, decent cross-country capabilities. So the Bearhawk was a good compromise.
It carries a useful load between 1,150 and 1,550 pounds, cruises between 135 and 150 miles per hour, lands at 40 miles per hour, climbs between 1,000 and 2,000 feet per minute, and has a range of between 650 and 900 miles, depending on the engine and power setting.
I can take off probably in 400 to 450 feet, and the landing distance is about the same. On takeoff, generally I use 2 notches of flaps. When the tail wheel comes up, that plane's ready to fly. This airplane is fun to fly low. So by the time I hit a couple of 100 feet, I'm ready to level off, go play. If you're a first-time builder, unless you have some really special skills, I don't think you ought to build a scratch-build Bearhawk. You might be okay buying the quick-build kit, the whole thing. The basics of this panel really is the Dynon Skyview. And it's really been a nice panel to work with and to fly with. I also made some redundancy in the panel. So I've got a Garmin G5. I wanted this panel to be to where I could fly IFR with it. So that's the purpose of putting the Garmin 430 in. This is the intercom. This, you can set your altimeter, heading track, and barometer with this. And this is the autopilot. These things you can all do just by touchscreen off of this panel, but by having separate instruments over here, it's easier to do it manually, so you don't have to keep changing your screen.
He's participated in a Hot Springs, South Dakota fly-in, landed on mesa tops with some of his flying buddies, flew over Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and plans a lot more backcountry adventures in the future. David Tulis, AOPA Live.
You can read more about Bill's Bearhawk in the November issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine.
Wow, that sounds like quite an airplane. Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks, everybody, for following along. If you want to see more, check out our YouTube channel.
Yes, and while you're there, don't forget to leave us a comment or send your thoughts to the email address on your screen. We'll see you next week.
Now's your chance to take part in the You Can Fly Challenge. From now until the end of the year, your gift to the AOPA Foundation will be matched. The high school initiative provides aviation STEM curriculum for students across the country. Flight training helps schools and instructors deliver the kind of experiences that today's pilots demand. Flying Clubs helps to start new clubs and provides support so existing clubs can flourish and grow. Help build a stronger pilot community today by visiting aopafoundation.org/challenge to have your gift doubled.